So today we have my friend James Ingrahm, and he is a funny character. He is so much fun and full of life, but there is a story here that you are just not going to believe, and I can't wait to share it with you. Welcome to the show, James.
Thanks
I'm so glad you're here with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
So let's talk first, kind of introduce everybody to who is James, right?
Yeah.
So you're a financial advisor for Northwestern Mutual. Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing that?
Since 2018, but I had a little break in there that I refer to at the office as my vacation.
Yes, we're going to talk about that vacation.
For sure.
You're married to Caitlin.
That's right.
Caitlin's also known as
Mrs. Honey. She was just a regular old Honey, and then when she got a ring on it, she got promoted to Mrs. Honey.
I love that. So where are you originally from?
I was born in Barbados, which is an island in the Caribbean, the best one. I'm biased towards it. You know, it's the most easterly island in the Caribbean. It's where Rihanna's from. It's where I'm from. We invented rum.
Are you and Rihanna like cousins or something? Both
close.
From Barbados?
No, I can't claim to any family ties with her. No.
But you look Irish and you sound Irish.
Do I really?
Yes.
People tell me that all the time. Yeah, St. Paddy's Day is kind of crazy. All the old ladies come and pinch me because they think I look Irish.
But your family history, origin, like they didn't come from Ireland to Barbados?
No, almost nothing. I think the closest we can get to Ireland is like England, Scotland, and maybe Denmark. But yeah, I look like this. Yeah.
Does everybody in Barbados have the same accent you have?
Close. I feel like in the U.S., accents change a little bit based on geography. But since Barbados is so tiny, I think accents change based a little bit more on like demographic. Like if you're a surfer, the surfers talk a little, you know, the car racers guys, they talk a little bit different. Yeah. So most people sound similar to me, but not everybody.
When you go home or when you go back and see your family, do they say that you now have a U.S. accent?
Occasionally. I have picked up the word awesome, and they're like, yeah, you sound so American now saying awesome. But no, yeah, I think it's kind of half and half now. I've been in the U.S. since 2008. So I think I might sound a little bit more American than Barbadian, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old are you?
34 years young. Yeah.
You've lived a lot of life in 34.
Hard to tell by looking at me. Yeah. Yeah, I've lived a lot. Yeah.
How did you get from Barbados to the U.S.?
Well, that's a great story. When I was very young, I showed a little promise in tennis. I played competitive tennis for a really long time. I was ranked number 1 in Barbados from under 10s all the way to under 18s. And my parents sent me away to a training facility in Europe when I was 17 years old, and had a brief stint playing professional tennis, and got injured when I was 19. And my parents said, you need to start university. And back then I was like, nah, university is dumb. I'm going to heal up and then go back playing professional tennis. But fast forward 3 months, I was sitting in a classroom in Tifton, Georgia. That was January 2008. So I've been here for a while. Yeah.
You got your associate's degree from the school in Georgia.
Yes.
And what was that in?
Business. Not super interesting, but, associates in business. And then transferred to Ouachita Baptist in Arkansas for my bachelor's, and then had the opportunity to work in D.C. for a little bit on the Hill, and went to Nebraska for grad school for my MBA.
Were you playing tennis during all this time?
I was playing tennis in college. While I was in grad school, they gave me the opportunity to coach the men's and women's tennis team in exchange for a free MBA. So I wasn't playing tennis in grad school. I was more coaching. Yeah, but tennis kind of funded the whole thing pretty much.
At some point in there, did you switch your sports?
I know where you're getting at. The answer is we kind of switched a little bit before that.
Okay.
And I know where you're going, and that's a great story.
So let's talk about whenever you started playing a new sport.
Well, it was during the last year of the professional tennis thing. I was dating a gal. Let's leave that term loose. And she left me for a rugby player.
Well, and let's paint the scene. I mean, back then you're like
Yeah,
fit.
I looked a little bit different.
Like,
Oh yeah, I thought I was the bee's knees.
do you have some
I had
washboard abs?
I did. I'll show you those pictures on Facebook later. So she was a model. She looked pretty good. She was from an Eastern European country. Let's just leave it at that. And she, I thought we had something special, and she left me for a rugby player, and I was kind of all like heartbroken. I was like, why?
And did you decide why she left you?
She told me. She said, well, rugby's more manly than tennis. And in kind of like a last-ditch, hopeless effort, I was like, well, what's more manly than rugby? And as she was walking away, she was like, I don't know, boxing. Michelle, I started boxing the next day. Not no word of a lie. That's true.
And so did you become pretty good at boxing?
I became okay. I thought about taking it to the next step. But I started grad school right when that was kind of happening. And, you kind of get a little bit busy and priorities kind of fall by the wayside and, hobbies fall by the wayside. But I didn't take that as far as I wanted or I thought I could have. But it was a good time.
And did
I have
this
this nose that used to be straight. Tells the tale for that. Yeah.
did the switch to boxing result in better statistics with women?
Surprisingly, no. Surprisingly, no. I think I was still batting like a 200 average right there. Yeah, but it doesn't matter now. All that's in the past.
So, how did you meet Mrs. Honey?
That's a great question. Do you want the short version or the long version?
Medium version.
Medium version. We met in early 2015 at a CrossFit gym in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I was...
And this is while you were in grad school then?
I was about to be finished grad school. We met in, I think, like February 2015, and I graduated in May 2015. So I went into that CrossFit gym. Well, I worked out there, and she did as well. And I was there to check out this other lady who I'd been talking to. And it was during the CrossFit Open. All you CrossFitters will know the Open that I'm talking about. And she was like, hey, I want you to meet my family. And so I get there, and she starts acting kind of shady. Like, she was kind of ignoring me. She was giving me the cold shoulder. Anyway, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm gone. I'm going home. It's late on Friday. I'm out of here. So as I'm literally walking out of the CrossFit gym, I have my hand on the door to go. And one of the gals who used to be in some of our workouts, called Lisa, was like, hey, and I know exactly what you're doing. If you're a foreigner in the US, people introduce you to their friends just to hear you talk so they can look cool, right? And so she's like, you're leaving already? And I said, yep. And she's like, you should come hang out with us. So I walked over there, and sitting right next to her was the lady now known as Mrs. Honey.
Was it magical at first sight, or did y'all have to take a little while to...
Well, that was a Friday. We hung out at a bar and talked into the wee hours of the morning, all Friday night into Saturday morning. I dropped her home that night. I was a gentleman. I just gave her a high five or a fist pump. And I think the only lie I've ever told my wife was the following day, when I said that me and a buddy are going out to a little sports bar and to watch the fights or whatever. Feel free to tag along if you don't have any plans.
And which part of that was the lie?
All of it.
You just wanted to see her again.
She shows up at the house, and I walk outside, and we get into her car, or my car, I can't remember. And we start driving, and she was like, we're not going to the restaurant, are we? And I said, nope. She said, your roommate's not coming. I said, nope. I said, we're going to the movies. And I took her to watch The Kingsman back in 2015. And her side of the story was I sat down next to her with my hand like that the entire movie. I don't remember that part. But she's been hanging out ever since.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So when did y'all get married?
About 10 and a half, 11 months later, February 1, 2016.
When you know, you know?
When you know, you know, yeah.
Did you feel like you knew from like that night?
I'm
when
not,
did you know?
Certainly not pounding my own chest, but there have been a lot of experiences with ladies along the way. It's kind of easy when you're an athlete in college in the US. And I knew that she was very different. I knew very early on that I mean, she was beautiful. I mean, that takes a second to look at, to find out. And the conversation and just being near her just felt different. And I was like, well, might as well have this forever, right? So I popped the question. She was very gracious and said yes. And about last month, we just celebrated our 6-year wedding anniversary.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Fun fact, we actually got married 3 times.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
This is a new fact for me.
Yeah. February 1 was at the courthouse in Lincoln, Nebraska. And we kind of surprised everybody. And we got married again in October of that year in Michigan with our family. The whole formal.
Did they know when you did the formal wedding that you'd already done
Yeah.
the informal?
Yeah. And then we got married in December that same year in Barbados with my family and my friends, and that was it was a good time.
Did she have to buy 3 dresses?
I think she might have. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I think so, yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
I took a selfie at each one of our weddings. Happy to send you that as well.
I think maybe I need to rethink this. We just had one wedding. I might need some extra dresses and shoes to have have another couple of weddings.
That's all right. Yeah. Any excuse.
All right. So let's kind of fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
What year did you start your, as you said, vacation? 20.
Well, let June 1st, 2018. We packed all of our stuff up into a U-Haul van, tiny U-Haul van, and we moved to Texas. And I started with Northwestern like right then. And I started not feeling well October of 2018. Allergies, it felt a little bit like COVID, if anyone has had COVID. And I was taking multivitamins, I was taking allergy pills, and I felt a little bit better, but this weird cough just kept lingering. And it wasn't a bad cough, but it was like every minute or so. And it started affecting my career where I couldn't make phone calls, or if I was kind of knee to knee with a client, it didn't look good because I was coughing on them like once a minute. So the wife said, you should go to the doctor and get that checked out. But if you're a guy, we're not going to the doctor unless something is like hanging off, you know what I mean? So I was kind of reluctant to go, but I went to the doctor and they diagnosed me in October with bronchitis. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Coughing, bronchitis. They gave me some antibiotics, and around 2 rounds go by and not really a whole lot of improvement. So I go back maybe November and they said, hey, it's now acute bronchitis. You need to take these steroids. And I was all fired up. I was like, yeah, steroids, let's go. But they said, it's not those kind of steroids. In fact, these ones are kind of bad for your ligaments. So don't do a whole lot of activity while you're recovering, because we don't want you to like snap something, right? So I started taking the steroids. And a couple days later, I started feeling like really terrible. Like inside my body, my bones ached. It was like the worst feeling ever, like inside.
And you're not able to work at that time.
I started not working that much. I was maybe 2 days a week at that point. And the cough was getting worse. And it felt like somebody was standing on my chest. And I noticed it one night when we had a cat back then, and the cat would just come and sit on my chest. And when I was like, this feels like the cat weighs like 50 pounds, right? It's a little house cat. And when the cat got off, the tightness in my chest was still there. Anyway, so the person who told me I had acute bronchitis and needed to take the steroids also scheduled me to see a pulmonologist in Plano. And we went there and we did like a pulmonary function test, and he diagnoses me with some weird old man disease like COPD or something like that. And he said it's rare for someone with your age, because I had just turned 30. Actually, I wasn't 31 yet. I was still 30.
And your physical fitness.
Yeah.
I mean, you were you
were
ripped.
I was in pretty good shape. Yeah. He said it's rare for someone with your age and your athletic background to have this. So let's do a CT scan just to make sure everything's okay.
So at that point in this process, were you kind of questioning their diagnoses and questioning what they were doing for you? Or were you just kind of trusting along the way?
I know I didn't feel good. I know that, it just felt like when you have the flu and you're kind of down for 2 days and you're in bed, it was like that times like 10. So I knew something was up, but the diagnosis that we later got, that was the farthest thing from
Yeah.
my mind.
But in that moment, you are physically fit,
Yeah.
you're young,
Mm-hmm.
you're athletic.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, or maybe not so suddenly, but over a course of a few months,
Yeah.
you're basically bedridden, unable to work, can't hardly breathe,
Yeah.
and seeming to have
Yeah.
doctors kind of guessing what's wrong with you.
In their defense, I don't think it was like actual doctors. It was someone that you'd go to like Care Now and see. The first 2 diagnoses and came from like a Care Now clinic. And after the CT scan, we get a phone call from the pulmonologist who ordered the CT scan. And he said, James, do you know you have a huge mass in your chest? And I was a little bit of a jokester back in the day. I was like, bro, listen, I could bench like 3.5. Of course, I got a huge mass on my chest. In fact, if you look carefully, you should see 2 huge masses on my chest. But he wasn't having it. He was like, it's in your chest, James. It's not on your chest. And that was kind of like puzzling to me. I was like, how did something get in there? Like, I didn't swallow anything. So he ordered some more like follow-up tests.
Yeah.
And at that stage, I wasn't sleeping in bed next to my wife. I was sleeping on the couch, almost vertically, because if I laid flat, like I couldn't breathe and I was coughing all the time. So I was on the couch sleeping similar to how I am right now and feeling absolutely terrible, not working. And now this is late December 2018. And we did some follow-on tests. We did a needle biopsy. We did some blood work. And that was my first time being ever under anesthesia. And the fear that, you have no guarantee that you're waking up, or at least in my mind, I didn't think that. So I was terrified.
So they took needles and went in and tested the mass?
Yeah. And so I woke up. Funny story. I hate all of that stuff. My hands are sweating right now just thinking about it. But while I was in the, about to go in for the procedure, the wife came. I heard her next to me and she was like, hey, James. I said, honey, are we done? And she said, James, no, you're resisting the whatever gas that they're giving you and you haven't gone to sleep yet. And I said, I know, I'm trying to resist. But they did the needle biopsy. And the results that they gave me, I thought were good news because they said everything that they're pulling out of there is dead or liquid. So I was like, that's pretty good, right? But apparently fast forward, there was a mass in my chest. Everything that apparently it was growing so fast that it couldn't feed itself, which is
So it was surrounding itself with dead tissue?
Apparently it was just growing and it couldn't feed itself. So everything kind of inside was dead.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And tell me about the day that you got the phone call, your wife was in the shower, the day you got the diagnosis.
It was 7:00 in the morning, like 7:00 a.m., January 7th, 2019. I get a phone call from a Plano phone number. And it was the guy who ordered the CT scan, the pulmonologist. And he said, James, I got the results back from the mass in your chest. And I was kind of hesitant, I was kind of nervous because at that time I thought something was going on. And I said, okay. He said, it's malignant. And I said, that's good, right? Because I was so naive back then. I didn't know what malignant meant. And he said, no, you have cancer. And I was like, how can I have cancer? I used to be healthy. I worked out all the time. I used to eat tons of salad on my hamburger, but whatever. How do I get cancer? And so the wife had come home a few minutes prior to that phone call from like Orange Theory or a run or something like that. And she was in the shower. And she was in the shower for what seemed like forever. And I was just waiting for her just to come. I was on the couch. I was just waiting for her to come outside so I can tell her. And she came outside and I was like, honey, sit. And then I said, apparently I have cancer. And I think that was the first time I kind of was a little bit like I ever contemplated my own mortality then. And even looking back, it was almost like surreal at that point. So she gave me a hug and she said, whatever it takes, we'll get through this. And I was still feeling absolutely terrible. She went off to work. I kind of was glad that she went off to work to kind of give her something to focus on while I kind of tried to digest and process all of this.
So that was January
7th, 2019.
And what did they